Today on Hearts of Heroes, a baby is born in the middle of one of the coldest storms in Texas history.
We had nurses that had been here for days on end. We were running out of food.
And it's going to take a team from 2 different hospitals to save the life of this fragile little girl.
You put a baby like this into that environment and their survival are certainly less than 5%.
Plus, a massive hurricane swallows the southeastern Louisiana coast.
It was a Category 4 storm by the time it made landfall.
Some of the most vulnerable were unable to evacuate. That's when unexpected heroes stepped up.
Regardless of what the weather's like, we take care of what we need to.
Just like that, heroes are on the way to help get you to safety.
Remember February of 2021? It was that historic freeze in Texas that temporarily paralyzed parts of the state. Power was out, so there was no heat. Water was out. It was complete chaos, especially for a mom who went into labor during the storm.
Despite these challenging times, the staff of 2 different hospitals would join forces to save the life of her newborn, a little girl born during the crisis.
If you're looking to escape the hustle and bustle of Austin, Texas, you can head 50 miles down Highway 71 to beautiful Marble Falls. This laid-back city is located in hill country right along the winding Colorado River. Here, the weather can be a little bit of everything, but it's generally far from cold. Their average winter temperature is just 55.
Winters are mild. I feel like 70's freezing.
But that all changed in February of 2021. An historic blast of cold, snow, and ice shut down much of Texas. And a lot of folks did not have heat or power for days.
All of Texas experienced a record-breaking winter storm. Now, for this part of the country, that's a very, very rare event, and not something that we have the infrastructure or the logistics to be able to normally handle.
Even though they had backup generators, the storm and the power outages were super challenging for the staff of Baylor, Scott, and White Hospital.
We had nurses that had been here for days on end. We were running out of food. Then our computer system had gone down in the snowstorm, so network-wide, our medical record charting was messed up.
It was a hectic time for the whole staff, but it was about to be even more stressful when a young mother-to-be named Kimberly came in.
Then about 10:30, a little after, Kimberly walks in the door, and that's when our day really started.
Kimberly was complaining about feeling labor pains, but it couldn't be. She was only 24 weeks pregnant. This was 4 months before her baby Zaylin was due.
We got the ultrasound on Kimberly's abdomen, and I think it was just like a deer in the headlights for all of us, as Zaylin's little body was already starting to come through a completely dilated cervix.
There was no question about it. Kimberly was in labor, 16 weeks ahead of schedule. Dr. Curtis Copeland was at home when he heard the news.
Nurse Meredith called me and said, "Dr. Copeland, we need you at the hospital. We've got a woman that's at 24 weeks gestational age, is now in labor."
Not only were they in this historic winter storm, but this hospital was not equipped with a neonatal intensive care unit, or NICU.
In a normal situation in a small community hospital like this, we'd call for the NICU transport team to be able to be here. And they'd send a helicopter and a team of providers that would come and, if able to, take mom before the baby was even born over to the hospital that has a specialized NICU.
But they didn't have time, so they just prepped for an emergency delivery. Fortunately, Meredith Schubert, one of the nurses, had previously worked at a NICU in Austin.
We arranged all our emergency supplies that we needed for a preterm delivery, and we walked through all the steps that we were going to take care of Zaylin once she was born, and said a quick prayer, and I really felt, a huge sense of peace come over me at that point.
The team started the delivery. In the best situation, a baby born this prematurely only has a 50-50 chance of survival, but those odds drop dramatically without specialized care.
You put a baby like this into that environment and their survival are certainly less than 5%. So it's a very critical situation. So it's hard to overstate what a serious situation is.
Boom, baby Zaylin was born. And then the real action started.
The delivery went as well as possible, but they were certainly not out of the woods.
With little Zaylin's life hanging in the balance, the hospital team would need to move quickly. They had to get her to a facility with the life-saving equipment that she so desperately needed.
Coming up, a courageous medical team comes to the rescue.
It really wasn't a decision. There was a baby out there, there was a mother out there that needed help.
Median survival is only around 50%.
And later, when a devastating hurricane rips through a Louisiana town, nurses sacrifice their own lives for the safety of helpless newborns.
It's just a lot of unknown and a lot of anxiety.
But first, some advice to help keep you safe when a storm hits close to your home.
Winter storms can knock out power for days at a time. And in most cases, it's more dangerous to travel than it is to stay put.
Stock up on supplies before a storm so you do not risk needing to leave. We recommend having non-perishable food, water, batteries, and warm clothing on hand.
So if you can, stay home, stay warm, and most importantly, stay safe.
In February of 2021, Texas was pummeled by an epic winter storm. This historic storm covered much of the state in snow and ice, sent temperatures plummeting sub-freezing, and knocked out power to millions. In the middle of one of the worst days of the storm, doctors and nurses in Marble Falls had to deliver a baby 4 months premature.
You got to remember that at 24 weeks gestational age, median survival, even at top NICU, is only around 50% survival. And so it's even more crucial in a smaller community setting that we try to get the baby to a NICU level of care.
With the storm raging and roads iced over, there was no way to transport Zaylin and her mom to a neonatal facility. With few options, they got in touch with one of the top NICUs in Texas, Dell Children's Hospital in Austin. But transporting the newborn some 50 miles would be challenging.
We found out that none of the other transport services in Texas were going.
So we immediately started making phone calls to anybody who could get out. After checking with all our resources, our ambulances were grounded, Starflight was grounded at the time, trying to find some way, if nothing else, just to get people out there, and we weren't being successful.
With no way to transport the baby safely, Dr. John Lloyd and nurses Nicole Patton and Kelly Klaus decided that if she couldn't come to them, then they would go to her.
It really wasn't a decision. It was just obvious. There was a baby out there, there was a mother out there that needed help, and we were gonna exercise any and all means to try and take care of that patient and the family.
I knew right away, being a mom myself, there wasn't a choice in that. If I were told that my itty-bitty, very premature baby could not be helped, I don't know what I would do.
These doctors and nurses take an oath to save people's lives, and they will go above and beyond to keep that promise.
After coordinating with the staff from Marble Falls, they loaded up Dr. Lloyd's SUV and hit the road.
We packed up half the hospital, packed up meds, packed up supplies, everything we could think of that this poor baby may need.
What's usually a 45-minute drive took over 2 hours. But once they finally made it, everybody was beyond pleased to see them.
Have you ever had little children when you walk in the house and they're really excited to see you and they run and jump and meet you at the door? It was sort of like that.
Throughout the night, the team of specialists worked to get baby Zaylin stabilized.
We knew that we needed to put in lines for the baby right away to make sure that she's getting the nutrition and keep her hydrated.
But they still had to figure out how to get this tiny baby to a proper NICU. Ambulances couldn't safely make the trip on the icy roads. The only way out was to fly. They called Shock Trauma Air Rescue, or STAR flights.
They had a little window in the weather, and the pilot felt like he could safely get out there and then get back.
Baby Zaylin and mom Kimberly were flown to Dell Children's NICU. Zaylin would have to stay in the NICU for months, but today, she is happy, healthy, and at home with Kimberly.
She's met all her milestones ahead of time, and she's met them and done it ahead of target. She's an amazing little creature.
And it's all thanks to 2 dedicated teams from 2 different hospitals who worked together to save baby Zaylin's life.
It was a wonderful experience just collaborating together like that. It got back to what healthcare is supposed to be.
I couldn't have asked for a better team to do it with. I've learned so much from this, and honestly, that little girl will have a piece of my heart for the rest of my life for sure.
Coming up, a major storm heading toward Louisiana.
We're talking 150-mile-an-hour winds for hours.
Thousands are trapped, including the most vulnerable.
We pull all the babies away from the windows in case the windows break.
But first, a tip to keep you safe if you're anywhere near the ocean when a hurricane is nearby.
All too often, when a storm rolls in, people head to the beach and watch. It can be a dangerous and devastating practice.
First, never ever get close to a raging ocean, but if you do, stay off piers and jetties. Don't wave dodge, and please resist the urge to take a selfie. No photo is worth your life.
When it comes to the ocean and storms, if you feel the spray, you're too close. Get away. We're all aware that first responders are committed lifesavers, but often there are unexpected heroes that come to the rescue.
When Hurricane Ida hit Louisiana, it threatened its vulnerable coast, including a hospital full of newborn babies. Thankfully, the nurses, doctors, and staff went well beyond their call of duty. Travel 13 miles west of New Orleans, and you'll find yourself in the city of Kenner, Louisiana. Founded in 1855, this region was once acres of swampland.
Kenner is generally below sea level. You have the river to the south side of the city. You have Lake Maurepas to the northwest. You have Lake Pontchartrain connected to that. So this entire region is surrounded by some sort of water.
Because Kenner is only 60 miles from the Gulf of Mexico, it's a prime target for hurricanes. The most notable, Hurricane Katrina in 2005. In August of 2021, the city of Kenner began bracing for another major storm, Hurricane Ida.
This storm was so fast moving that we didn't have an opportunity to call for a mandatory evacuation.
It's an enormous undertaking to evacuate the metro area. And if you don't have 72 hours to do it, it's not going to happen. And we didn't have 72 hours.
The storm was moving in too fast to call for a safe mandatory evacuation. The only option for many people was to hunker down and shelter in place.
The staff of Ochsner Baptist Hospital's 54-bed neonatal intensive care unit was bracing for the incoming storm.
The NICU is a special care nursery for babies who need special care as far as like some respiratory distress or congenital anomalies. They're not ready to just go home and stay with mom and dad.
But for these fragile patients, evacuation wasn't an option.
We're dealing with people's most precious things in life, and regardless of what the weather's like outside, we take care of what we need to for our patients and for each other.
It was a Category 4 storm by the time it made landfall.
With a storm this powerful, it is not safe for anyone, including first responders, to be outside.
Once the storm is hitting, you are 100% on your own.
As the storm approached, the team of nurses at the Ochsner Baptist Hospital's neonatal intensive care unit were preparing for what could be a very long ordeal.
It's just a lot of unknown and a lot of anxiety leading up to what are we actually going into.
Ready to face the unknown, this team began emergency prep.
We pull all the babies away from the windows in case the windows break. We close the hurricane shutters, we close the curtains, and we move them closer to the doors. We've got generator power here, so we're making sure that everything is plugged into that generator.
The brutal storm was approaching quickly, and the clock was ticking for the brave nurses and their fragile patients. Coming up, the people of Kenner endure one of the strongest hurricanes in the state's history.
We're talking 150-mile-an-hour winds for hours.
And with rescuers unable to respond, they had to brace for Ida's fury.
The outside world is pitch black.
But first, this tip to help keep you safe in a hurricane.
During a hurricane, items that typically appear harmless, like lawn chairs and trash cans, can become dangerous objects.
Items like these can easily be swept up and thrown about by strong winds. If you have time to prepare, be sure to move any loose items from your yard into an enclosed space like a garage or a shed.
Taking these few extra steps to prepare before a storm hits can help keep you, your loved ones, and your home safe until the storm passes.
In August of 2021, Hurricane Ida, a Category 4 storm, was headed straight for the Louisiana coastline.
The storm was moving in too fast to call for a safe mandatory evacuation. The only option for many people was to hunker down and shelter in place.
The folks who work at Ochsner Baptist Hospital's neonatal unit were preparing for the worst.
We pull all the babies away from the windows in case the windows break.
Late Sunday night, on the 16th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, Ida hit with incredible fury.
We're talking 150-mile-an-hour winds for hours.
With the winds howling, nurses and staff at the Ochsner Baptist neonatal unit were doing everything they could to keep their at-risk babies safe.
It was scary, seeing all the rain hitting the windows, hearing the thunder, hearing the lightning, and you're still seeing the windows vibrating, and you're looking at the outside world, which is pitch black because all of the power's gone out.
It's really frightening. You're watching the wind blow trees down, blow utility lines down.
You're watching the wind blow. You're seeing the power lines swaying in the anticipation of what's going to happen next. And you're just waiting and waiting and waiting, and then it blows over.
After almost 12 hours, Ida finally passed. But with the power out in most of the city, the Ochsner Baptist Hospital team had to remain sheltered in place.
So essentially, no one is able to leave and no one is able to come in.
It was 4 days. So to have to work 4 days in a row, back to back to back, and not having really any breaks in between because you're still at the hospital.
Those days are stressful, knowing that the storm is done, but you don't know how your house is. How is everyone else's house?
Fortunately, the hospital had generators and clean water. After the 5 days of lockdown, the team at Ochsner Baptist Hospital were finally allowed to return to their homes.
There was relief, but also fear, because for a lot of us, when we were leaving, it was the first time we'd actually gotten to glimpse our city after everything that happened. You're going from, I'm protecting these babies and taking care of these babies, to now I need to assess my own personal situation and get started.
And then getting home and getting to see my kids, hug them, was the best. So, but that's when it hit on how tired I was.
Throughout the terrible storm, and especially at Ochsner Baptist Hospital, there were plenty of heroes to go around.
They made the decision to stay. Heroes have to focus on their job, their mission, to save the people and to help people who are in distress.
These are some of the true heroes in disasters and storms of this nature, because they sacrifice the comfort of being with their families to care for those kids in intensive care.
The families of those babies are forever grateful for those heroes. And once the children grow up and realize just how wild their entrance to the world really was, they're gonna be forever grateful too.
Maybe, just maybe, some of them will grow up to be doctors, nurses, police officers, or firefighters themselves, all inspired by the brave men and women who protected them in their time of need.
Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you next time on Hearts of Heroes.